6th of December 2023. This edition of Boerbeskuit, I will take a look at some international news. Yesterday I didn't do anything international. And I want to start with this one in the Middle East. The United States has lost all credibility now as a mediator, and nobody in the Arab world at the moment sees the United States as a mediator. It is part of this war with Israel against the Arab people. And because of the shift of balance of power to happen, especially after the Ukraine war, the regional powers have become emboldened. Countries are now challenging the United States. It's not like the situation 10 or 15 years ago. Nou daar is 'n groot klomp waarheid in wat die ou hier sê. Die feit dat die magte oor die wêreld verander het, kan nie ontken word nie. Ons sien dit nou duidelik. Die grootste probleem waarmee ons sit, is dat die Amerikaners wil nie aanvaar dat hulle dae van sweepklap is verby nie. Hulle wil nie aanvaar nie. Hulle sien nie die realiteit nie. Nou het ek gehoor in 'n debat dat daar is mense in die Pentagon wat wil hê die Amerikaanse vloot moet teruggetrek word uit die Middellandse See uit en uit die Midde-Ooste uit. Want hulle sê die wapentuig wat nou vandag op die kaart is en op die tafels is van so aard dat op die einde, as dinge skeefloop daar, gaan die vlootbates wat Amerika in die Middellandse See het en daar onderkant Iran, daai goed gaan heel waarskynlik almal vernietig wees. En waarmee moet Amerika hulle self dan verdedig? Very valid question, but I think I've said it from the word go. The Israelis, the Zionists, overplayed their hand this time. And I saw an article last night in which the commentator said that it is quite clear that Israel cannot exist without massive support from the US. And they say the US has seen Israel basically as an aircraft carrier in the Middle East. And now it is clear that that aircraft carrier is taking water. And it's going to take a lot of money and a lot of effort to prevent it from sinking. And then you have this ridiculous thing. US Army soldier. US government is charging soldiers $500 to $1,000 each for equipment and gear they were ordered to leave in Afghanistan 2 years ago during the withdrawal of the US forces. How ridiculous is that? Those guys just got a command to pull out. And now the army is charging the soldiers for the equipment that was left behind. And then I see that the Russians are now, they've also started using cluster ammunition. That is sad, but it was the Americans and the British that started that. And then Angelo Giuliano, I like this guy a lot. His comment, he just made a tweet in which he said, 1945, the Germans did it to them. And he shows mass graves. And then he says, 2023, now they do it to Palestinians. Something to think about. And then there's this story that was on Fox News about a Palestinian that apparently tried to jump the fence at Gaza. And it has now come out that that thing was faked and that Fox News were involved in the production of it. The man almost naked in blue boxers being arrested by Israeli soldiers is a crisis actor. The same man was seen later in the same video just casually getting dressed again. That is the shit that we have to live with. And it seems like the Polish is turning up the heat with the Zelensky regime. This Polish guy says, Ukraine will not join the EU until it repents for the Volyn massacre. Polish Deputy Foreign Minister said in an interview. Things are going down the chutes for Ukraine. The Americans started that damn thing, and they thought that 8 years of preparation since 2014 has made Ukraine military unbeatable, because they invested a lot in that military and in training and in equipment, and the Russians wiped it out. And then there's this article that the headline is The Illusion of Victory, How Israel's Faux Triumph masks a strategic stalemate. And we've got the same thing now there in Israel that we've got in Ukraine. It's a stalemate. That's what they call it. But in Ukraine, it's not a stalemate. The Russians are progressing and they are eating up the Ukraine military. It's actually a NATO military. And they are eating it up. And another thing that I have read is the commentator questioned, why is it that the West is trying to convince the world that peace in Ukraine can only be achieved in negotiations between Russia and the United States. What the fuck is the United States to do with the thing? The war is between Russia and Ukraine. Why must the United States be involved in it? Why must they be in the negotiations? Why? The one Russian MP said that all these weapons and money that the United States is pumping into the Ukraine is like a guy taking tablets for a disease that is incurable. But he keeps on buying that expensive medication, although he's got no chance of ever recovering from the illness. But he doesn't want to stop taking the tablets. Hungarian Prime Minister Orbán on the collapse of Europe. The Brussels model of Europe is leading to chaos. Fewer and fewer people are working. More and more people want to live without work. Social order is disappearing. The consequences of migration are unmanageable. The debt hole grows, and investors move their money from Europe to America and Asia. Instead of trading and building relationships, Brussels bureaucrats prefer to lock us up. Instead of pulling themselves together, they take offense and lash out at those who tell them the truth to their faces. By 2030, England and France will not be among the world's 10 biggest economies, and Germany will be only 10th. You can't say yes to that. You can only say no. We don't want to be Soros debt slaves. We don't want to be a group war zone and a world of migrant ghettos. But who will listen to Orbán? The voice of reason doesn't have a seat at the table in Europe. Here is something that the Americans should take note of. School children from Moscow won the International Astronomy Olympiad. The boys won 6 gold medals. Dmitry Timofeyev became the absolute winner with the best results in terms of points. That is what Russia is doing. Investing in its youth, investing in education. And what does the Americans do? They piss their money into wars. And their people are living on the streets in tents. And I spoke about it earlier, where there's now parking areas at malls that the government has now demarcated as parking spaces for people that live in their cars. Imagine that in America. And then Scott Ritter comes with another burner There is not a NATO force out there that would survive more than a week against the Russians. So far, all the people out there going, hey, we're killing Russians, the best investment we've ever had. You don't know what you're talking about. It's the worst investment because all we are doing is making Russia stronger every single day. But again, who's going to listen to sanity? And then a French politician from the French Patriots Party, Ursula von der Leyen, proudly tweeted that the EU just paid Zelensky's regime a new monthly check for 1.5 billion euros. And this has been the case every month since last January. It is insane. And this, despite the fact that the war is lost and the country is ultra corrupt. Again, who's going to listen to that? And something more on the Netherlands. This is a political earthquake. Western media on the victory of the extreme right in Netherlands. Financial Times. Geert Wilders' victory will shake up the EU. However, he will need the support of at least 3 other parties to form a governing coalition. Telegraph. Despite a convincing victory, the controversial populist has a difficult and thorny road ahead. Establishment parties will be wary of entering into a coalition with a man who has called for an end to arms supplies to Ukraine and a referendum on the Netherlands' exit from the EU. Well, let's see where that one goes. Now I'm going to go to South Africa, and I start with this one. ANC bank account have less than 100,000 rand. Ezulweni claims as part of party's debt balloons to more than 140 million. The ANC has been given until close of business on Wednesday to pay the money into a trust account. Now what I'm wondering about, all those cadres that have scored the billions and billions and billions from the ANC, why are they not bailing the party out now? They've got their money because of the ANC, from the ANC, by the ANC. And now the ANC is sinking. Why are they not bailing their, let's call it their feeder line? Why are they not bailing it out? I'm curious. And then we have this. Tourbus terror. Sun City. Pilanesberg tourist ambushed, shot at for euros. How is that good for South Africa? If tourists are being ambushed. But it just proves that this government has got no control. And I have to mention this again. Cyril that says, stop bad-mouthing your country. I wonder why. Why? There's nothing good to say. And then there's that story that is running again about the fact that Nelson Mandela, the one that we saw as a president, is not the real Mandela. And the guy's got a lot of big story about it, but to me, I'm not so sure. I'm chewing on that one. They say that it's an imposter that acted as Mandela, and Mandela actually died already in 1967. And I don't know what to think about that. And then there's this in The Guardian. Charities and churches left in financial disarray after Barclays shuts accounts. Well, there's so much money laundering going on. And the banks are now under severe pressure. So I can understand that they now, all these dodgy accounts, they're just going to close it. And this is something that you should look at. Ramaphosa's discharge of Didi Mabuza trial judge delays truth for many more years. On July 24, 2023, for reasons that remain unknown to Daily Maverick, President Cyril Ramaphosa signed an order that discharged Judge Kasim Sardiwala from his duties at the Gauteng Division of the High Court in Pretoria as the trial judge in the Fred Daniel murder. Sardiwala was presiding over the evidence that implicated David Mabuza. Well, I was actually quite surprised when Mabuza just disappeared from the scene so quick. But I've always maintained that there is skeletons there that the ANC doesn't want to see come out. And you all have seen that video about Cyril and that water tap there in KwaZulu. And this guy posted the video and his comment is, "Forget smart cities, fast trains and satellite communications. The ANC built a tap." And then there's lots of stories about the human trafficking. And we should be concerned, as citizens we should be concerned about that. But we are at the mercy of the criminals. We don't have a police service that can actually handle crime. There are good elements in the police service, but the service as a whole is not good. And then I saw last night an article about hundreds of policemen leaving the service, going to private security companies. That is something we should take note of. Cocaine worth 151 million rand seized in a special intelligence operation at Durban Harbour. This is the third mass drug bust in 2 months at Durban Harbour. Guys, that Durban Harbour is hell. This is something very disturbing. The collapse of the steel master plan and disintegration of the industry. The recent announcements by ArcelorMittal South Africa on the potential closure of its operations. And I feel sad about this. That will most probably kill Newcastle. It's going to hurt Van Bell Park. It's going to be very bad. And I've seen last night already the numbers that are coming out of the people that will be retrenched, and it is thousands. This is not a good thing. And then there's this article. ANC to approach Concord over assets attachment attempt. What the hell? They owe that company. They cannot pay. That's the way it should go. But it's the same. I see the guys on Morning Shot, they talked about this power ships thing this morning. And then the Turkish company took the BEE company, told them flat out, you can't raise the capital that you're supposed to raise for your 49% of the shares, so we're going to take your shares back. And they took the Turkish company that actually owns and built these ships, they took them to the labor court, and that labor judge found that to demand payment for the shares is racist. Think about that. The demand to pay for the shares in the company is racist. And the judge found that the shareholders' agreement that clearly stipulated what each party's responsibilities are, the sections that are demanding certain actions from the BEE partner, that is racist. What the fuck is that? So a business deal, simple business deal. You want shares in the company, you pay so much. And they got 49% shares in that company for 95 million rand, which is apparently peanuts if you look at the total value of that power ship contract. But now, demanding that payment is racist. And I have said it many times on my Skidmarks, this BEE thing is going to fuck South Africa on the international market big time. The local cadres are jumping up and down, and the local militants are jumping up and down about BEE. But the guys, the other guys, there is of the BRICS countries. Xi Jinping told Cyril straight, get rid of that BEE. But Cyril didn't listen. And we all know what the effect of BEE is. But there's blacks that are very happy with BEE. BEE and affirmative action is nothing else than a protection system for the weak. That's what it is. And then Mbeki comes out. Mbeki warns South African economy is pulling down the rest of Africa. Okay, fuck. Now, South Africa is pulling down the rest of Africa. which I can understand, because the rest of Africa banked heavily on the South African economy and the infrastructure and the harbors and all of that. And those things are now evaporated. So now they've got a problem. Countries like Zimbabwe, like Botswana, like Swaziland, like they depend on South Africa's ports and a railway system and the road systems. But all of that is now falling apart. And those countries have got now major problems because Zimbabwe is landlocked. But I think that it is not going to be long. Between the Chinese and the Russians, Zimbabwe will be connected to the sea through Mozambique. And then that is gone from South Africa. And we have to take note of the turmoil. There are things going on in the political sphere. Guys, you must be extremely aware of the potential dangers in this shit-shot pack of the DA. Die klein partytjies moet net eenvoudig aanvaar. Die DA gaan vir julle sluk, hoor. En as jy partyleiding het wat nie integriteit het nie, moet jy die klein partytjies pas op dat die partyleiers nie deals doen met die DA, wat in effect gaan beteken, die DA gaan die klein partytjies opslurp nie. En die leiers doen deals met die DA vir goeie poste in die nuwe regering. Hou dit in gedagte. Ek het informasie dat daar is partye wat al reeds besig is om daai ding te negotiate met Zille. So, wees gewaarsku. Julle ouens wat hierdie klein partye ondersteun, die VF+ en die UIM en al daai goed, julle moet pas op. Hulle gaan vir julle insluk. Jy stem vir die VF+, omdat jy gatvol is vir die DA en jy het nie 'n politieke tuiste nie. En dan, wat is jou garantie dat die VF+ jou nie gaan verraai nie? Hou dit in gedagte. Nou ja, ek hoop julle het 'n lekker dag en julle nuus geniet en huil maar oor die goed wat jy moet huil en lag oor die goed wat jy moet lag. Op die einde van die dag kan ons actually fokol en hierdie goed doen, want die kaders is in vol beheer en hulle is volspoed op pad om Suid-Afrika te laat crash. En ek moet hierdie nou by sê. Nou is hier weer 'n ou wat op die Telegram kanaal kom en hy sê, ja, ek is nou besig om my tunes te change, want ek sê die mense moet stem, maar dan praat ek oor hierdie tribal ding. Ek kan nie verstaan, laat die ou nie oplet in die klas nie. Ek sê, kry verteenwoordiging in die parlement, dat daar 'n seat is by die tafel, want Suid-Afrika gaan crash. Hy gaan crash, dit is net 'n kwessie oor wanneer, maar dit is nie meer baie ver nie. Die rede hoekom ek sê, jy moet stem, sodat ons 'n seat by die tafel het, is as daai fucking crash gebeur, gaan daar gegryp word vir scraps en vir stukke. En die grypers wat die beste kans gaan hê, is die ouens by die tafel. Die ouens wat nie by die tafel is, die sal met die krummels moet tevrede wees. Onthou dit. Dis hoekom ek sê, jy moet gaan stem, laat ons verteenwoordiging in die parlement het. En jy het verteenwoordiging daar nodig, om te kan bywees die oomblik as die hele system uit mekaar uit bliksem, dat jy 'n hand daai het wat ook 'n stuk kan gryp. Nie hier in die buitekant sit in jou fucking hoekie en wag vir die krummels wat op die grond geval het nie. Maar ek wil myself opgewonde kry oor dit nie. Dis waaroor dit gaan. So moenie met daai kak kom, ek change my storie nie. Ek change nie my storie nie. Ek sê steeds, jy moet gaan stem, laat ons verteenwoordiging by daai tafel kry. Maar die finale oplossing vir Suid-Afrika is tribal, hoor. Tribal. Terug na die tribes toe. Want hierdie colonial law system en colonial court system en colonial political system en colonial commercial control systems, al daai kak moet weggevee word van die tafel af. Ons het dit nie nodig nie. Daai goeders is alles ontwerp om XXX warm te hou. En XXX se spannietjies, die blou is, die geel is, die rooi is en die groen is. Hulle veg like hell. om daai goed in stand te hou, want dis waar in hulle sekuriteit lê, maar nie ons sinne nie. Nou ja, lekker dag vir julle, geniet dit, kappe daar buite, gryp die lewe met 2 hande aan en, man, dit help nie om op 'n hoop te gaan sit en chunk nie. Want die probleem daarmee is, dan kan jy nog ook, het jy nog verdere probleme, jy kan nou nie eers meer mooi lekker sien hoeveel kak gaan jou tref nie. That's the story. Lekker dag.